Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. We had previously stopped at this last section, or this last part of the section entitled Kalaam. So we had previously covered, or the author had previously mentioned what Kalaam is, what it is made up of, and the definition and some words points with regards to the components of Kalaam. And he also then went on to mention looking at Kalaam from the angle of it having the possibility of being truth or false, being described as truthful or falsehood. So Kalaam from the angle of being khabar and insha. And today, or in this sitting, inshallah, we will look at Kalaam from another angle, or speech from another angle. And that is the angle of speech being described as either being Haqeeqah or Majaaz. So the author will discuss Haqeeqah, discuss the various types of Haqeeqah, the three types, the benefit of knowing or having these three types of Haqeeqah, and then you'll speak about Majaaz, some points with regards to when can you carry something to be Majaaz, then also some points with regards to how to use Majaaz, that it has to be an alaqah, and sometimes the alaqah is mushabaha, and sometimes it's other than that, and so forth. And then he will finish off with a caution or something to be aware of with regards to this topic. So Bismillah, we'll try to see how it goes bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So he says here, الحقيقة والمجاز وينقسم الكلام من حيث الاستعمال إلى حقيقة ومجاز. And speech can be categorized when looked at from the angle of its usage into Haqeeqah and Majaaz. Haqeeqah and Majaaz. Sometimes Haqeeqah is translated as literal, and Majaaz is sometimes translated as metaphorical. But we'll leave them, I will leave these two words as Haqeeqah wa Majaaz. I'm not going to translate them, inshaAllah ta'ala. And we need to try to remember these terms because that's one of the reasons we're learning Usul fiqh. So he says here, he begins with Haqeeqah. He says, فالحقيقة هي اللفظ المستعمل فيما وضع له. It is a pronunciation that is used, al-lafz, something that is spoken, al-musta'mal, that is used. And the second part, فيما وضع له. In what or in that, in brackets you can put meaning, with the meaning that it was put down for, what it was placed for. So Haqeeqah is, it is a pronunciation that is used with the meaning that it was put for. With the meaning that it was put for. And he says here, for example, Asad, the word Asad, للحيوان المفترس. The word Asad for the well-known animal, the lion, the animal that we all know, the lion. So the word lion or Asad is a word which is used, it is a pronunciation which is used, and I'm using it to intend that which it was put for, i.e. the word lion for the animal. So now he says فخرج بقولنا. So this part of our statement, al-musta'mal, al-muhmal, that which is not used, that which has no purpose. So like for example, if you have two words, if you have a pronunciation like what you normally find scholars will give the example of days, the opposite of or the flipped version of Zaid, the name Zaid, you find that sometimes the scholars will say days. The muhmal is like days, because in the Arabic language the word days is not used. فلا يسمى حقيقة ولا مجازا. So the word that is muhmal, the word that is a pronunciation that has no meaning, that is not used, is neither called Haqeeqah nor Majaaz. Is neither called Haqeeqatan nor Majaaz. وخرج بقولنا فيما وضع له المجاز. So when we said in part of the definition of Haqeeqah that it is a pronunciation that is used in brackets we say the meaning, in that which it was put for, in that which it was put for, then this part of the definition excludes for us Majaaz, because Majaaz is used in a meaning that it was not put for. Like if we were to use the word Asad a lion, but we were to use it for a brave warrior. We said, I saw a lion on the battlefield. Now we're using a word which is used, asad, but we're using it not in the way, or we're using it for something which was not what it was put for. It was originally put for a lion, but we're using it to mean something else now. Okay, so haqiqah is that we use the word in what fima wudi'a lahu. We use it in that which it was put for, with the meaning which it was put for. So when we have this in the definition, then it excludes for us majaz, because majaz is that they use it in other that it was put for. وَتَنْقَسِمُ الْحَقِيقَةُ, and haqiqah, so that's haqiqah. We've come to know what it is. Now he's going to give us the different types of haqiqah. So now if I was to say, what is haqiqah? You say it is a pronunciation which is used in the way it was put for. Now if you put after that, you say the way it was put for linguistically, i.e. in the language. Or you could say the way it was put for Islamically, shar'an. So you could say haqiqah, the haqiqah in the shar', in the Islamic text is, or in the Islamically is to use the pronunciation which is used in the meaning that it was put for, or with the meaning that it was put for Islamically. So we've added now something. Or you could say the third one is, there's three, the third one is technically, or urfiyan, urfiyatan, like in a certain, it is the pronunciation that is used in that which it was put for customarily, i.e. in the custom or in the term of a certain group of people. So these are three things. So it's either haqiqah lughawiyya, it is a haqiqah that is linguistic, or it is one which is shar'iyya, or it is one which is urfiyya. He's going to explain those, or he's going to discuss these now. So lughawiyya, he says al-lafdhu al-musta'mal fima wudi'a lahu. So we have those 2 points. It is the lafz that is used in that which it was put for, i.e. the word was put for, fil lugha, in the language or linguistically. فخرج بقولنا في اللغة الحقيقة الشرعية والعرفية. So when we use this part of the definition in the language or linguistically, then this excludes for us the haqiqah which is in the shar' Islamically, or in the urf, a customary haqiqah. مثال ذلك. So an example of this would be الصلاة. فإن حقيقتها اللغوية الدعاء. So salah, if we were to use it from a linguistic point of view, its haqiqah from a linguistic point of view could be dua, i.e. the linguistic meaning of the word. That's what it was used for in the language. It was put down for in the language. فتحمل عليه في كلام أهل اللغة. So then when you're looking at the speech of the people of the language, the kalam of the Ahl al-Lugha, then you would carry this word as-salah, when you find it in their speech, you would carry it with this meaning of dua, because the word that the word as-salah is used by them in the haqiqah al-lughawiyya to be dua. So that's lughawiyya, haqiqah from the angle of lugha, one type. Second type, haqiqah shar'iyya. So here he says, here al-lafdhu al-musta'mal, same as before, fi ma wudi'a lahu, same before, and now he says fi ash-shar', in the sharia, in the sharia. فخرج بقولنا في الشرع. So our statement, or our point here, بالشرع, في الشرع الحقيقة اللغوية والعرفية. Then this excludes for us the haqiqah which is linguistic or customary or technical. مثال ذلك الصلاة. Now if you have an example of the word الصلاة, فإن حقيقتها الشرعية الأقوال والأفعال المعلومة المفتتحة بالتكبير المختتمة بالتسليم. So here, if we were to find the word salah in the speech of the shara, then the haqiqah that is intended, the meaning that is intended when it is used in that field, would be the certain actions and movements which are known, that start with the takbirat al-ihram and end with the taslim. So it will be carried. So this is the meaning that will be given in the speech of Ahl al-Shara ala dhalik. So this is the meaning that will be given when it comes to the speech of the people of the Sharia. What does this mean? This means, for example, if you find someone is talking from a linguistic point of view and he was the word salah, then what he intends is, it's a haqiqah, and it is used in a way that it was put down, and that is linguistically, because he's from the people of the language, like in a dictionary or whatever case. Now if you find that a person is speaking in a book of fiqh, or even the ayat or hadith, you find the word salah, then because it's disconnected to the shar, this is connected to the shar, you would understand it to mean the haqiqah shar'iyah, the meaning of that word that it was originally put for in the shar, which is the well-known salah, the prayer. So in each case you take the haqiqah that is within the framework of where you find in the speech. The third one, والحقيقة العرفية هي اللفظ المستعمل, like we found before, فيما وضع له, in that which it was put, في العرف, in the customs. فخرج بقولنا في العرف الحقيقة اللغوية والشرعية. So when we have this word al-urf, then this excludes for us the other two haqiqahs that we previously covered, the lughawi one and the shar'i one. مثال ذلك الدابة, like the example of that is a beast. فإن حقيقة العرفية ذات الأربع من الحيوان, because the word دابة, if you were to look at it at how it is customarily used by many of the people, it points to, it is used to mean that which walks upon the earth on four limbs. So in the language of the people of the urf, of a custom, then you would take that meaning to be that. You take that meaning to be that which has four limbs that it walks upon. Whereas the actual linguistic meaning is greater than that. It is not just an animal or a beast that walks on four. The linguistic meaning is more vast than that. But the general meaning now among the masses, the urf, is that. Okay, now what's the point of knowing this? What's the point of knowing these three types of haqiqah? Okay, he says وفائدة معرفة تقسيم الحقيقة إلى ثلاثة أقسام, and the benefit of knowing that haqiqah can be split into three categories. أن نحمل كل لفظ على معناه الحقيقة في موضع استعماله, is that we carry each word, carry means we explain, we give the meaning of each word upon its meaning, its haqiqah meaning, its actual meaning, في موضع استعماله, which is appropriate or in the place that it is used. So if we have a word and it is used by the people of the shara, then we give it its actual meaning in the shara. If we have that same word but it is being used in the context of the people of the language, linguistically, then we will take it to the haqiqah of the language. If we have that same word which is used in the urf of the people, then it could be of a certain people, like in a certain country there's a urf, or it could be of a certain, like a technical meaning in a certain subject, then we go to the urf of those people. When we find that word in their speech, we will take it to the haqiqah of their certain urf, of their certain custom. So that's haqiqah. Now the author rahimahullah goes on to mention al-Majaaz. He says والمجاز and majaz هو اللفظ المستعمل في غير ما وضع له. It is the pronunciation which is used, the same as حقيقة so far, في غير, in other than ما وضع له, that which it is placed for, in other than that which it is placed for, or that which it was placed for. So al-majaz is the pronunciation used in that which, in other than that which it was put for. And we gave an example previously, like to use the word lion for a brave fighter, for a brave warrior. Originally, the word lion was not used for that meaning. It was used for the animal. But it has now been used at times to point to the brave warrior. So majaz, and said we don't want to translate it. I've translated Haqeeqah once, but majaz some people call, or say in English, metaphorical. Now the author rahimahullaah goes on to mention فخرج بقولنا المستعمل المهمل. Like previously we mentioned, مستعمل, what does it exclude? And then he says وخرج بقولنا, and this part of the definition excludes for us al-haqiqah, because al-haqiqah doesn't have غير. Al-haqiqah is في ما وضع له. That's haqiqah. Majaz في غير ما وضع له, in other than. Now he's going to tell us that when do we carry a statement? So we find someone's speech. When do we carry this speech on the majaz? Are there certain conditions? Because just because if someone affirms majaz, and he's going to discuss about whether majaz exists or not. If someone affirms majaz, it doesn't mean now you can just carry anyone's speech into majaz, because if you're to do that, then there will be no meaning. Everybody can create their own meaning from any statement. So there are certain protocols. So he says here he says, when can we carry it? ولا يجوز حمل اللفظ على مجازه إلا بدليل صحيح. And it is not allowed to carry a statement onto its majaz, i.e. to give it a majaz meaning, except with an appropriate or a correct evidence. يمنع من إرادة الحقيقة, which prohibits or which stops the intent of حقيقة, وهو ما يسمى في علم البيان بالقرينة. And this is important. And this evidence for you to take a word and say this is now majaz. Okay, how do you know that? There has to be an evidence for you to move it from the haqiqah to majaz. There has to be something, and this thing is called a qarina, an accompanying evidence, or just call it a qarina. And then he's going to give us here, he's going to start the discussion on if someone wants to use majaz now, then there's some protocols to that as well. So the first one was with regards to us interpreting something upon its majaz. Now here we says وَيُشْتَرَطُ لِصِحَّةِ اسْتِعْمَالِ اللَّفْظِ فِي مَجَازِهِ, and it is conditioned, or there is a condition for the accurate or the correct use of a pronunciation into majaz, to its majaz, وجود ارتباط بين المعنى الحقيقي والمجاز, that there's a connection between the meaning of the haqiqah and the majaz. I.e., can you now just say, instead of saying I saw a lion on the battlefield, you just say I saw an aeroplane on the battlefield? Well, what is the connection between the plane and the brave soldier? Whereas there's a clear connection between saying the lion, which is strong, ruthless, you can say maybe even brave, and the warrior on the battlefield that is brave. There's a clear connection. So that for someone to use a majaz, there has to be a clear connection if they're going to use it in the meanings. ليصح التعبير به عنه وهو ما يسمى في علم البيان العلاقة. There has to be an علاقة. And this alaqa now is of different types. The Shaykh is going to discuss it in brief here, because as you've seen, he says that it's discussed in ilm al-bayan. So he says here, وَالْعَلَاقَةُ إِمَّا أَن تَكُونَ الْمُشَابَهَةُ أَوْ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ. So he says this connection, this alaqa, is either going to be one, mushabaha, or two, other than the mushabaha. There's going to be either resemblance or other than that. And he says here, فَإِن كَانَتِ الْمُشَابَهَةُ, if that connection, if this alaqa is mushabaha, سُمِّيَ التَّجَوُّزُ isti'ara. So now if I say to you, what's this? And you say isti'ara, that means there is a connection, there's an alaqa which is a resemblance, mushabaha. كالتجوز بلفظ أسد عن الرجل الشجاع. Like when you do a majaz between, from the left asad, from the word lion, with the man who is brave. There's a clear connection, and the connection is the resemblance. Okay. وإن كان غير المشابهة, if it is not if it is other than that, سمي التجاوز, then there are two options or two things the author is going to say. Either the majaz is going to be in the wording. If it is in the wording, it is called مجازا مرسلا. إن كان التجاوز في الكلمات. If it is in the words, there's a word that is majaz, then it is going to be called مجازا مرسلا. If it is in the isnad, then it is called مجازا عقليا. What does it mean in the isnad? I.e., every word in that statement, in that sentence, is haqiqah. You mean the haqiqah with it. But when you put them together, when you join or put one on top of the other in that sentence, there is something majaz about it. But the words, if you look at each one of them, is haqiqah. So if this connection, or if the majaz is not mushabaha, it is not mushabaha, غير mushabaha, and it is in the words, it is in one of the words, then it is called majaz mursala. If the majaz is in, it is not mushabaha, but it is in, not in the word, but it's in the thing together, in that sentence together, then it is being called majazan aqliyan. And he's going to give examples. Although some of the examples he himself, we're going to see what he says. مثال ذلك في المجاز المرسل. An example of that in the majaz al-mursal, and that is with regards to isnad here. It means, in this sense here, it means that it is in a phrase. He's going to explain here. It is in a phrase. So it is not in one of the words. Each of the words in your sentence is haqiqah. It is taken upon its meaning that it was used for originally. But when you put the phrase together, it's going to be, there's a majaz inside it. Like, for example, I'll give you a quick example. He's going to mention in a minute. Like if you say, the president built a masjid. Now, the word president, you mean the actual president. Okay. The word built, you mean actually the word built. The word masjid, you actually mean a masjid. But when you put them together, the president built a masjid, you say, well, he actually didn't build it. There were actually builders that built it. So each of those words in that sentence are upon the haqiqah. You want the real president, really built, and really a masjid. i.e., it's an original meaning. But when you put them together, it is understood that you're not literally saying that he built it with his own hand. You mean that he put, he gave the permission for it, or he spent his money, or whatever the case may be. So here the majaz, if we're going by what this book is saying, here the majaz is not in the words. It is actually in the isnad of how these things are put together in that phrase. Okay, so he gives us here, the author rahimahullaah goes on to mention an example of the majaz al-mursal. An example of it is that you say رَعِينَ الْمَطَرِ. فكلمة المطر مجاز عن العشب فالتجوز بالكلمة. Here the author himself in his explanation mentions that he only used this example because of this is an example that the people of Balagha themselves use, even though itself has majaz in other than that. But it's like, for example, if you were to say the camels pastured on the pastured, on the water, on the rain, pastured the rain, or grazed the rain. What it means is that they grazed the field, the field that was there. But the word rain, matar, is used to indicate, is used majaz for the grass or whatever they were pasturing on, as he mentions in his sharh. لأن الذي he says ولهذا إذا أردت المثال الصحيح تقول رعت الإبل المطر، فرعت الإبل حقيقة والمطر مجاز لأن الإبل لا ترعى المطر بل ترعى العشب. Okay. And the connection, what would be connection between the word matar and ushub? The connection would be that it is sabab, that this is a cause for the pasture. So what is the connection between the rain and the vegetation that the animals graze upon? The connection is that the rain, Allah has put it as a sabab for the vegetation to grow. So that's the alaqa, that's the connection. So it's not one of resemblance, it's not al-mushabaha, but it is a different connection. ومثالي, so that's one where you have a majaz in one word. So this is called majaz mursalan, majazan mursala. ومثال ذلك في المجاز العقلي. Remember, عقلي, we said this in the isnad, is when the words are put together. He says أن تقول أنبت المطر العشب. The water caused the vegetation to grow. Caused the vegetation to grow. Then the author says here, فالكلمات كلها يراد بها حقيقة معناها. For all of the words in this phrase, what we want from them, or what is wanted by them, is the actual meaning. Is the actual meaning of those words, is the حقيقة of those words. لكن إسناد الإنبات إلى المطر مجازا. But to connect the putting forth, the bringing forth of vegetation to the water is majaz. When you connect the vegetation, the action of bringing out the vegetations to the water, then it becomes, or to the rain, sorry, then it becomes majaz. لأن المنبت, because the one that causes the vegetation to come out, حقيقة, literally or in reality, هو Allah, is Allah Ta'ala. فالتجاوز في الإسناد. So the majaz here is in the isnad. Type and let me know if that was okay, inshallah. ومن المجاز المرسل, and from the majaz al-mursal, which is in the words, he says التجاوز بالزيادة. Sometimes it can be بالزيادة, with having something extra, and sometimes it can be with hadf, taking something away. And we're going to go with what the author himself says, okay? We're not going to discuss what does the speaker think that the haqiq or the rajih is, and so on. But what he says here in the book. مثلوا للمجاز بالزيادة بقوله تعالى. They give an example of the majaz with a ziyada, with an addition. Allah's statement, ليس كمثله شيء. ليس, there is nothing like, similar to him, anything. So there is nothing that is like, similar to him. فقالوا إن الكاف زائدة. They said that this kaf here, they said that it is زائدة للتأكيد نفي المثل عن الله تعالى. It is extra to emphasize the negation of anyone having resemblance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a discussion whether it's appropriate to say that anything in the Quran is extra, because when you say something is extra, it's as if you're saying when you take it away, it's still okay. So but we go with what the author says for now to understand the subject. ومثال المجاز بالحذف is قوله تعالى واسأل القرية. And an example that these scholars that have this opinion give for the majaz which occurs by removing something, by removing a word, is like when you have the statement واسأل القرية, ask the village. أي واسأل أهل القرية, it meaning ask the people. So you see that this word ahl, the people of the village, is not mentioned in the ayah. فحذفت أهل مجازا. So this أهل has been left out or has been not put in there مجازا. وللمجاز أنواع كثيرة مذكورة في علم البيان. And majaz has many types which are mentioned in علم البيان. وإنما ذكر طرف من الحقيقة والمجاز في أصول الفقه. Why does he mention it? ذكر ذلك لماذا؟ لأن دلالة الألفاظ إما حقيقة وإما مجاز، فاحتيج إلى معرفة كل منهما وحكمها. Because the wordings and the evidences of the wordings are either going to be evidences that can be extracted from the wordings are either going to be haqiqah or majaz. So it became a necessity to know the types, i.e. these types, and the rulings for them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. As we mentioned, Usul fiqh helps you to understand the Quran and the Sunnah, and also scholars use it in judgments. When someone says something, they make a statement, they go before a judge, they can say, oh, well, then intend that, and so forth. So you have an understanding of how speech is used. Sometimes people use it upon the haqiqah, sometimes they use it upon the majaz, and if it's using majaz, then it has to have an alaqah. You cannot just say, oh, that was majaz from me, I didn't mean that, and there's no alaqah, and so forth. So it's something that it is used. Okay, the last point, the author rahimahullaah ta'ala mentions a tanbih, something to be aware of. So we'll quickly read through it. تقسيم الكلام إلى حقيقة ومجاز هو المشهور عند أكثر المتأخرين في القرآن وغيره. وقال بعض أهل العلم لا مجاز في القرآن، وقال آخرون لا مجاز في القرآن ولا في غيره. وقال به أبو إسحاق الإسفرايني. ومن المتأخرين العلامة الشيخ محمد الأمين الشنقيطي رحمه الله تعالى. وقد بين شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية وتلميذه ابن القيم أنه اصطلاح حادث عن بعد انقضاء القرون الثلاثة المفضلة، ونصره بأدلة قوية كثيرة تبين لمن اطلع عليها أن هذا القول هو الصواب. So the author rahimahullah ta'ala has mentioned a number of points here that the scholars differ upon this. Okay, there are some of them that said that there is majaz in the Quran and in the Arabic language. Some of them said there is no majaz in the Quran. Some of them said there is no majaz in the Quran and other the Quran. So some of them said there's majaz in the Quran in the Arabic language in general. Some of them said the opposite, there is no majaz in the Quran, no in the Arabic language. Some of them said there is majaz in the Arabic language but not in the Quran. So there are three things here. And then he mentioned a number of scholars that held that there was no majaz in the Arabic language nor the Quran. They're big names. It's not people that are not big names. And this is a long discussion. There are many things that can be discussed with regards to this. And the author then finishes off by saying that this seems to him أن هذا القول هو الصواب, that this view, the last view that was mentioned, is the correct view. Either way, if Allah gives us tawfiq and we manage to read an intermediate level book after this, then we'll see more discussions on the issue of majaz. But at least a student's knowledge should try to understand what was being said, because whether you believe it or not, the majaz is there or not, there are going to be books that mention it, so you need to be aware of it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu